Hello.
So the video we just watched was such a milestone. We have hit 100 pilots across this country. Now, there was a great New York Times piece on this fact last Friday. Make sure to check it out if you haven't. So much of your work is reflected in these pilots. About half are mayor-led in the vein of the Stockton demonstration, and about half are community-led in the vein of the Magnolia Mothers Trust. Put together, there are 100 of them. And you have to raise a lot of money. You have to figure out how to disperse the cash. You have to think about the legal risk and the waivers. And it's an incredible amount of work that has been replicated 100 times across this country. And I am just so grateful to get to be in the presence of so many of these pilots. And as that video pointed out, put together between all the different pilots, there are 38,000 people around this country who are receiving, have received, or will receive monthly cash payments with no strings attached. Have largely caught on because they've been effective and responsive to what people need. We need stability, freedom, and a chance to envision a better life. But you don't have to take my word for it. I get to be up here with Sukhi Samra, the Executive Director of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, and Mayor Daniel Biss of Evanston, Illinois, to talk about some exciting new data.
So thank you, Natalie. Before we go over the data that we're sharing today, I actually want to take us back to Stockton, where we announced and where we had the first mayor-led pilot and also had the first community data dashboard coming from a guaranteed income pilot. My journey to guaranteed income and our journey in Stockton was incredibly personal. So I'm brought to guaranteed income by my mom, who, when I was growing up, was working multiple jobs. She was a cashier at a gas station. She also worked at Subway, and she was a house cleaner. In her free time, she was a caretaker for my disabled dad and my two sisters and I. And no matter how hard she was working, we were still relying on government assistance and on programs like food stamps and Medi-Cal, not because she was working hard, she wasn't working hard, but because she was working hard and it still wasn't enough. And in Stockton, we knew that while my mom's story was tragic, and it's not an anomaly, and for far too many women, especially women of color and Black women, it's a reality that we grapple with every single day. And we also know that poverty is a policy choice and one that we can disrupt with a guaranteed income. So with that in mind, and also knowing that while I know that poverty is a policy choice, and you all know this, most in this nation haven't come to grapple with that fact. And so to change the narrative, we had to couple data and stories together. And to do that, we launched a community data dashboard in Stockton. And now, today, we're excited to share one that shows the data from more than 24 mayor-led pilots, created in partnership with the Center for Guaranteed Income Research and the Stanford Basic Income Lab. And it shows, again, what we saw in Stockton, that when you invest in folks, they're going to spend the money to get ahead and to take care of themselves and their families. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mayor Biss.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniel Biss. I'm the mayor of Evanston, Illinois, a city just north of Chicago, to which all of you should move. We are incredibly proud. Somebody clapped. That was great. Thank you. I'm incredibly proud that we are launching a guaranteed income pilot. Checks will be out the door in a matter of weeks to 150 families in Evanston in need of that money. And I'm honestly honored and excited to be a part of this gathering and this conversation and to hear the inspiring stories and ideas that I'm hearing. But I'm also a little bit aggravated by the message that I have to deliver this morning, which somehow feels very antiquated. The idea behind guaranteed income is that people living in poverty who are in need of money can have their problems best solved by being given money. And this is not an idea that we are debating 15 minutes after the invention of money. It's an idea that we're debating right here in good old September of 2022. And it's so out of step with how we think about money in all other contexts. When we just give it to the people who need it. When the economy is slow and we want to increase investment, we lower interest rates and stimulate investment all over the place, not just by putting money in the hands of the investors who have filled out certain government paperwork and met certain complex thresholds. When the pandemic devastated the airline industry, we just shoveled money toward airline companies. We didn't invent a complicated process during which a few of them had to somehow qualify themselves. And yet, as soon as you are living in poverty and someone suggests that perhaps your problems can be solved, your problems of not having enough money can be solved by being given some, questions arise. And we hear these questions in Evanston as well. Questions of, well, hold on, if we do this, what are these folks going to do with this money that you're going to give them? And that is why it is so critical that Mayors for Guaranteed Income is now launching this data dashboard, which includes data from 20 pilots from across this country with information about what has been done with the money, and by the way, who has received it. So first, a few statistics about who has received it. The recipients are 77% women, 41% African American, 33% of mixed descent, 25% Latino, 16% white. The average recipient has an income of $14,226, just slightly in excess of the, one might argue, very low federal poverty line. And the median recipient has a lower income of $11,292. These recipients are people who need this support. But perhaps even more responsive to the criticisms and the questions and the skepticisms is the data about what this money is being spent on. 39% going to retail or discount establishments to purchase clothes, food, hygiene products, and so forth. 27% to groceries. 9% to transportation. 7% to housing and utilities. I'm guessing it does not come as a surprise to anybody in this room, but it needs to be said because unfortunately it does come to a surprise to too many people outside of this room. This money is not being squandered. It's not being squandered on any of the kind of ugly, vicious, and often racist and sexist stereotypes about what poor people will do when given money with no strings attached. It's also not being squandered on something else though, right? Which is yachts and vacation homes, expensive art at auctions. Because I find this whole world of skepticism about what are poor people going to do with the money we don't trust them to be very baffling in light of what rich people do with their money. Are you kidding me? And so I want to end on one point, even zooming out a little bit, if you'll indulge me. Because I think it's worth asking ourselves the question of where this ugly skepticism comes from. And yes, a big piece of it just comes from straight up old-fashioned racism. And a big piece of it comes from straight up old-fashioned sexism. That is a fact. But I think there's even yet more to it than that. And there's something very deep and profound and dangerous in that additional step, which is that way too often in this country, we make the assumption that rich people are rich because they made good choices, and poor people are poor because they made bad choices, and therefore we ought to expect that rich people will keep on making good choices and poor people will keep on making bad choices, and that is so profoundly opposite to the lived experience of people in this room and to common sense and to almost every anecdote we encounter in our daily lives. And that piece of poison does not only act as a barrier, making it harder for us to implement guaranteed income programs, it breaks our ability to make sound, logical, evidence-based, and humane public policy in domain after domain after domain. And so my one charge to y'all is go out in the world and identify that pathology and break it wherever you find it. And the more we break that pathology, the more we'll be able to build the kind of just world that we all are fighting so hard for. And with that, I want to hand it back over to Natalie.
Thank you so much, Sukhi and Mayor Biss, for encouraging us to root out the poison. We have come so far when it comes to the 100 pilots we've talked about today, the 100 mayors announced today,
and also the fact that there are many states who have passed policy. We've come far in translating the vision and the values of a guaranteed income into real policy shifts. And policy is where it makes a difference in people's lives. Policy is frozen power, and it means that it will continue on until something changes, but it's something that people can count on for perhaps a lifetime. That is what we are shooting for. We have passed a modernized child tax credit in 2021, which effectively operated as a guaranteed income for kids. And just last year, we marked significant wins in 7 states that made existing policies on the books look more like a guaranteed income. Monthly cash, no strings attached. In my home state of California, any other Californians in the room? That meant taking a policy called the Young Child Tax Credit and effectively turning it into a guaranteed income for families with kids by getting rid of the requirement that one must collect a paycheck in order to receive the tax credit. That change meant putting $1,000 into the pockets of more than 100,000 families with kids in California. And in Illinois, a lot of love for Illinois. The groups on the ground and the lawmakers there took a state earned income tax credit, an anemic earned income tax credit that had been sitting around, and drastically expanded it to include any worker over 18 and undocumented immigrants like dreamers. And they made it way bigger, too. So we're just getting started. States are really the laboratories for innovation, where we have the opportunity to continue to demonstrate the proof of this concept that with a guaranteed income, it's more than just a check. It is time to spend with your family. It is time to build new skills for a better job, or it's dollars to spend at your local businesses. That is why today we are thrilled to announce the Pilot to Policy State Fund, which will resource local organizations on the ground in states to run campaigns that will modernize the tax code, advance a guaranteed income, and build power for economic justice. Founded with an initial investment of $1 million, our ambition is for the fund to replicate successes in more states by reaching more people who would benefit now and ultimately pave the way for a federal guaranteed income. So we will hear more from some of these amazing state leaders later today, as we'll be talking about some of the campaigns on the ground in a panel